The routine invasion. The Zhor'kai High Commander Velrix stood before the shimmering star map, clawed hands behind his back, as systems blinked green across the display. Hundreds of conquered planets pulsed faintly across the galaxy, reminders of triumphs turned routine. His obsidian battle armor reflected the glow, but his focus was on a small blue in Sector J78. Target X, 992, the logistics drone droned. Local designation, Earth. Pre-space flight, civilization. Biologicals show marginal threat potential. Velrix exhaled a deep, raspy breath. Then we proceed. Standard incursion pattern. Shock teams first. Dismantle infrastructure. Dominate within 72 cycles. The council nodded. No debates. This wasn't a war. It was extermination with protocol. Above Earth's orbit, sleek Zhor'kai dreadnoughts pierced the atmosphere like gods descending. They moved with surgical indifference. Cities blinked to life below, blissfully unaware of the death silently streaking toward them. Velrix's command ship, Dominion's Edge, remained in high orbit. His obsidian eyes watched feeds from the first wave. Deploying in capital zones, said Subcommander Trellix. They're slow to respond. Indeed, human defense systems were scattered, primitive by Zhor'kai standards. Velrix had overseen the conquest of more advanced civilizations. Some had planetary shields, orbital fleets. Earth had satellites, metal birds watching the skies and sending weather reports. Begin urban lockdown, Velrix said. Suppress local authority. Stun, not destroy. We want minimal cultural contamination. But as the landers touched down in New York, Moscow, Lagos, and Shanghai, something shifted. The feeds didn't go dark. They erupted in chaos. Zhor'kai shock troops stormed the streets in perfect formation, clad in reactive armor, firing magnetic suppression bolts. Standard procedure. But the humans didn't run. Not in the way they were expected to. In New York, a firefighter hurled a Molotov cocktail at a plasma drone. In Lagos, a crowd surrounded a patrol walker, flipping it with their bare hands. In Moscow, rooftops lit up with sniper fire, hunting with decades-old rifles, yet each shot found joints in alien armor. Disorganized resistance, Trellix muttered, trying to convince himself. Velrix leaned forward. No, this isn't disorganization. It's instinct. By hour 6, entire squads were lost. Zhor'kai air superiority faltered as jerry-rigged missile launchers hidden in shipping containers tore through atmospheric skimmers. Civilians used their own cars. Trapped highways became killing fields, improvised barricades choking movement. One field report read simply, "They're using construction cranes like artillery." What kind of species does this? Velrix watched a live feed from what should have been a routine pacification zone in Sao Paulo. One of his squads entered a factory. A minute later, it exploded. Not from human weapons, from the building itself, wired with mining charges. Suicide defense. It made no tactical sense. And yet, it worked. Another report. Alien forces lured in the stadium, doors sealed, gas pipes ruptured, fire set. Another. Captured tech turned into traps. Local hackers exploiting translation modules to misdirect orders. What madness is this? Trellix barked, pacing. They have no unity, no command structure, no. They have nothing to lose, Velrix interrupted. And that makes them lethal. He stared at the map again. Dozens of green blips blinked red. Areas the invasion force had lost. Velrix tapped a talon against his armor. We underestimated them. By Earth's second day under invasion, nearly a fifth of Zhor'kai ground forces were offline, either destroyed or MIA. Communications were fractured. Entire regions had gone dark. Velrix summoned his full council. Earth is not a standard target, he declared. We must adapt. A younger officer scoffed. Adapt? To savages? Velrix's eyes narrowed. You call them savages, but they're not fighting to win. They're fighting to bury us with them. He opened a feed, grainy, human-captured footage of a man in civilian clothing running straight at a patrol walker, strapped with explosives, screaming, "Remember Normandy. Motherv ****. The officer said nothing. Velrix's voice dropped to a growl. We fight logic. They fight with history. The map shifted, more red zones flickering into view. Earth was bleeding, but so were the invaders. Humanity strikes back. Lieutenant Sarah Vance hadn't slept in 36 hours. Not real sleep, just flashes of dark between gunfire and shouts. She wiped soot from her brow as the ground shook again. Another orbital drop hitting somewhere north of Chicago. Status? She barked in her headset. Enemy drones just cut power to sectors 12 through 18, said Ramirez, her tech sergeant, tucked behind sandbags and salvage car doors. But they're blind too. EMP surge cooked half their sensors. Vance nodded. Good. Get the blackout teams moving. Around her, the warehouse-turned-command post buzzed with activity. Civilians and soldiers worked side by side, stringing up wires, welding armor plating onto stolen vehicles, spray-painting slogans on scavenged drones. This wasn't a war fought by armies. It was fought by everyone. The Zhor'kai expected resistance to crumble. What they found was something they couldn't model. Human unpredictability. The internet, once filled with cat videos and pointless arguments, became a weapon. Hackers launched viral misinformation campaigns that targeted alien command channels, uploaded schematics of Zhor'kai walkers, shared tactics globally. One drone feed went dark after a swarm of hobbyist quadcopters lured it into an overpass. Memes mocked the invaders into overreactions. Zhor'kai translators, unable to grasp sarcasm or satire, responded to deliberately misleading human broadcasts as genuine military commands. One viral video of a farmer tricking a scout patrol into driving into a manure pit became a morale boost across continents. Vance's team used the chaos well. Their mission: intercept and hijack a Zhor'kai supply skimmer en route to St. Louis. We've got one chance, she told her squad as they crouched in a drainage tunnel under the target zone. They think we're primitives. Let's make that their last mistake. The skimmer descended, 6 stories tall, humming with power, escorted by aerial drones. Vance waited until it touched down, then signaled. From beneath the concrete, a dozen resistance fighters emerged. Militia, former engineers, high school teachers turned commandos. They swarmed the underbelly, using magnetic clamps and plasma cutters. One drone spotted them, but a slingshot-wielding teen on a rooftop took it down with a metal bolt. 10 minutes of brutal, chaotic fighting later, the skimmer's pilot bay was breached. Ramirez plugged in a crude jackport cobbled together from an Xbox controller and laptop battery. Somehow, incredibly, they took control. The humans had captured their first ship. Inside the commandeered vessel, the team marveled at the alien tech. It's got power to level half a city, Ramirez said. But they've got no firewall. It's like they didn't think we'd ever get inside. We're inside now, Vance said. And we're not leaving. They stripped the skimmer. Salvaged weapons, armor plating, and control chips. Every scrap was sent back to underground labs run by universities, militaries, even hacker collectives. Reverse engineering began within hours. Soon, human teams used stolen parts to jam Zhor'kai signals, to impersonate their patrols. One team in Berlin reprogrammed an alien artillery unit to fire on its own lines. Another in Seoul used salvaged camouflage fields to sneak into an alien garrison and blow it sky high. The tide was shifting. In orbit, Commander Velrix stared in disbelief at his data feed. Impossible, Trellix muttered. They are repurposing our own technology. They've turned children's entertainment systems into targeting tools. It's not technology that threatens us, Velrix said. It's adaptation, improvisation, rage. His jaw tightened as another red zone blinked onto the map. They're not losing morale. They're getting better. One intercepted human message chilled even the seasoned commander. We figured out how to fly their ship. We're coming for the rest. 2 days later, the Dominion's Edge lost contact with 3 outposts across North America. Vance's squad had coordinated with guerrilla teams in Mexico and Canada. The plan was simple: use captured tech to send false retreat orders, then ambush the response teams in transit. It worked. Vance stood in the remains of a destroyed walker, rain pattering on her armor. She pulled the Zhor'kai battle standard from the wreckage and tossed it to the ground. Ramirez grinned. "We're sending a message now." "Yeah," she said, "and they're finally hearing it. War of attrition." Commander Velrix stood in silence, staring at the growing sea of red blinking across the tactical display. Earth was burning, but not the way he intended. The conquest timeline was broken. Occupation zones were collapsing. Zhor'kai resources were stretched thin, and worst of all, morale was cracking. He activated a private channel. Report. A grizzled field officer appeared on the holo, his armor scorched. Sector 9 collapsed last rotation. Humans detonated a dam upstream and drowned the entire forward base. They don't care about their own infrastructure. They just want us gone. Velrix clenched a clawed fist. And medical units? Overwhelmed. Some troops are hallucinating. We think it's exposure to Earth's pathogens. Minor microbes mutating faster than our filters can adapt. Velrix's lips curled back. They're using the planet itself as a weapon. Down below, in a frozen forest near what had once been a Canadian airfield, Lieutenant Sarah Vance trudged through snow with her battered squad. They had been on the move for 3 days, living on MREs and melted snow. The enemy had upped their orbital scans, so they couldn't risk staying in one place more than a few hours. "Status?" she whispered. "Enemy patrols circling northeast. For walkers, maybe drones overhead," said Ramirez. "But they're slow. Their servos are degrading in the cold." Vance smirked. "Good. Let the planet chew on them for a while." The squad stopped near a cratered ridge where a battered but functional alien sensor array stood, left behind after a Zhor'kai outpost fell. Tonight, they'd use it to triangulate orbital command signals. If they could jam or fake them, they could turn half the enemy's forces against each other. That was how things worked now. Not through brute force, but with hacking, sabotage, misinformation, and sheer endurance. Cities became pressure cookers. Not just war zones, traps. Resistance teams turned sewer systems into tunnels of death. Ancient subways carried soldiers and bombs alike. A single teenager in Mumbai rigged a skyscraper's elevator system to drop 20 stories on top of an alien troop transport. He became a folk hero overnight. In Siberia, humans dragged Zhor'kai walkers onto frozen lakes, then waited for the ice to crack. In the Amazon, indigenous tribes coordinated with special forces, using jungle terrain the invaders couldn't comprehend. Their cloaking fields failed in heavy humidity. They were hunted like beasts. Back in orbit, Velrix faced the unthinkable. "We are losing," Trellix said quietly. "They're not advanced, but they adapt faster than any species we've faced. They weaponize chaos. They improvise. They don't break." Velrix slammed a fist into the display. "They should have broken weeks ago. Their species isn't meant for total war. Their government's fractured before we even landed." "They were fractured," Trellix said. "Now, they're unified. Nothing unites humans like being punched in the mouth." Velrix stared at the spinning blue planet below. "They evolve through adversity. Every loss makes them more dangerous. And some of our own are defecting," Trellix added. "Psychological destabilization. They can't handle the environment, the food, the media. Commander, some of our soldiers are mimicking them." Velrix blinked. "Mimicking? Yes. Dressing like them. Listening to their music. Adopting their slang." One unit was discovered painting faces with human symbols, what they call skulls. Velrix turned away, then burned that unit. Meanwhile, in an underground lab beneath Prague, Ramirez and a team of engineers wired together a horrifyingly unstable prototype, a hybrid railgun system, built from scavenged alien weapon cores and an old satellite dish. "It'll either fry their orbital scans," he muttered, "or fry us." Vance tightened the strap on her vest. "Just make sure it fries them first." The shot was fired 30 hours later, blasting a pulse directly into orbit. It scrambled communications across 5 Zhor'kai fleets. For 12 minutes, Earth's skies went dark. Resistance units across the globe used that window to strike. 5 dreadnoughts were grounded. One was captured intact. The tide had turned. and the invaders knew it. Velric stood alone in the observation deck of Dominion's edge, staring down at the battered planet. It wasn't just Earth that had resisted. It was humanity. Every shade, creed, and ideology. Their species didn't just fight, they learned. Every tactic used against them was turned into a lesson, a weapon, a meme. They were chaos wrapped in flesh, and now that chaos had a direction. They are not the anomaly, he whispered. We were. He turned from the window, his voice cold. Begin evacuation protocols. Scorch what we must. But this invasion is over. Crushed and remembered. The sky above the Nevada desert cracked open with fire as the last Zhor'kai dreadnought tumbled from orbit, trailing flame and debris. It struck the earth with a thunderous roar that echoed for miles. A smoking tomb for an empire that had thought itself invincible. Lieutenant Sarah Vance watched from a ridge, wrapped in a scavenged thermal cloak. Her face was sunburned, her armor dented and patched, but her eyes held the steely calm of someone who had survived hell and helped shape it. They're gone, Ramirez said beside her, lowering his binoculars. Or what's left is running. Vance didn't smile. They didn't retreat. They fled. That's not the same. Down below, teams of resistance fighters, now organized into something resembling an army, moved through the wreckage, securing weapons, tech, and survivors. Humanity wasn't taking prisoners out of mercy. They were collecting proof that Earth had won. In orbit, the Dominion's edge was a silent hulk, systems gutted by sabotage and cyber warfare. Commander Velric sat in the war chamber, alone, his armor unlatched and chestplate cracked. His face, usually a mask of certainty, was drawn and tired. He reviewed the final casualty reports. 89% of ground forces lost. 3 out of 5 fleets disabled or destroyed. Entire communication lattice fractured beyond repair. Zhor'kai reinforcements weren't coming. Their high command had written Earth off. A dead world. Too costly. Too unpredictable. Too human. Velric played a fragment of intercepted human media. A grainy video of a teenage girl standing atop a captured walker, waving a tattered Earth flag, screaming, "You picked the wrong species." He closed the feed. His claws hovered over the self-destruct sequence, but paused. No, let them take the wreck. Let them see what they conquered. Let history remember who lost. Weeks later, a global broadcast reached every corner of Earth. Over radio, satellite, patched-up internet, and word of mouth. Sarah Vance stood behind a makeshift podium in what remained of Geneva, surrounded by representatives from surviving nations, communities, tribes, and resistance networks. "This is not a victory speech," she said, her voice hoarse. "This is a warning. We were just another target to them. A line on a chart. A name on a list. They thought we'd fall like the others." She paused, letting the silence settle. They were wrong. We stood. We bled. We adapted. We turned their weapons into tools. We turned our grief into strategy. And when they ran, we didn't cheer. We rebuilt. People around the world watched. Some in shelters. Some in ruins. Some in cleared-out bunkers. But all of them listened. "This war changed us," Vance continued. "It taught us that we are not weak. Not fractured. When pushed to the brink, we don't collapse, we ignite." Over the following months, humanity did what it always did. Learned fast. Captured Zhor'kai, tech fueled a renaissance of science and engineering. Medical breakthroughs, clean energy, anti-gravity vehicles. Things once imagined in fiction became prototypes. Earth's fractured nations formed uneasy alliances, then partnerships, then a council. They called it the Earth Defense Accord, a charter with one goal: prepare for whatever came next. Children studied the invasion like history. Teenagers joined reconstruction brigades. Scientists reverse-engineered everything from alien translation nodes to atmospheric stealth. Humanity had been changed, not just by survival, but by potential, by proving what they could become. Far beyond Earth's solar system, remnants of the Zhor'kai Empire convened in cold silence. "We underestimated them," said one admiral. "A young species, crude and scattered. And yet they humbled us." Another spoke with contempt. "Then let us return. With numbers. with fire. Let's burn their world to ash. But the eldest among them shook his head slowly. No, we struck first, and they survived. If we strike again, they might come for us. The council went silent, because deep down they knew humanity was no longer prey. Back on Earth, Sarah Vance stood alone at the crater edge where the Dominion's edge had fallen. The sun was rising, casting long golden rays across the twisted wreckage. She placed a small metal plaque in the soil. It read, "To the unknown invaders, you thought we were just another target. You were wrong. Earth fights back." She stepped back, saluted, and walked away. Behind her, the winds of a new world began to blow.